Tonight, breaking news, guilty across the board in the killing of Ahmaud Arbery. A nearly all-white jury convicting the three defendants of felony murder for chasing Arbery through a Georgia neighborhood and then shooting and killing him. During the trial, the gunman, Travis McMichael, admitting Arbery did not threaten him before the deadly encounter. Emotional reactions inside and outside the courtroom today from the Arbery family and supporters. And tonight, Arbery's aunt, who was at the trial, joins Top Story Live. Also tonight, holiday travel surge, packed airports and roadways across the country, the big travel unknown this season, plus the best time to hit the road on the way back Sunday, plus the warning as Americans prepare to gather again with COVID cases and hospitalizations spiking in parts of the country. Conviction overturned. The man exonerated for the rape of Lovely Bones author Alice Sebold after 40 years. The award-winning author writing about that crime in her memoir. Tonight, with the now free man, told our Isa Gutierrez about his decades-long fight to prove his innocence. Plus, Black Friday just 2 days away, and retailers are already rolling out deals. What consumers need to know, the best day to buy toys, and the right time to buy that new TV, and the new change coming to some stores you need to know about. Buck Wild, the new video tonight after elementary school students discovered a deer inside their classroom. How officials say it got trapped inside. And good evening, I'm Tom Llamas. We begin Top Story tonight with breaking news. The three men on trial for the killing of Ahmaud Arbery have been found guilty of felony murder. The nearly all-white jury convicting Travis McMichael on all counts. He's the one who fired the fatal shots. His father, Gregory, and neighbor William Bryan were acquitted of the top charge of malice murder, but the three all face up to life in prison. Arbery's family and civil rights leaders have called it a modern-day lynching after the men chased the 25-year-old through a Georgia neighborhood while he was on a run and then shot him. Inside the court, Arbery's father breaking out in a cheer as the verdict was read, his mother overcome with emotion, later saying her son will now rest in peace. His family also celebrating outside the courthouse along with their attorneys and the Reverend Al Sharpton. Arbery's aunt, who was also at the trial, will join Top Story Live in just a few moments. We'll have that. But we want to start with Sam Brock, who leads us off tonight, live from Georgia.
All right, let's hear it.
A series of guilty verdicts that took about 10 minutes to read.
Count 1, malice murder. We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty.
Ripple through the courthouse and the crowd outside, demonstrating justice for Ahmaud Arbery could speak to decades of discrimination.
I never thought this day would come, but God is good. Would you know him as Ahmaud? I know him as Quez.
Yes.
He will now rest in peace.
Amen.
Brunswick, Georgia will go down in history as the place that criminal justice took a different turn.
The jury's verdict, guilty on 23 of 27 possible counts, including malice murder for the shooter Travis McMichael, who was found guilty on all counts. Felony murder and aggravated assault for his father Gregory, who drove the truck, and the same for neighbor William Roddy Bryan, who helped pin Arbery with his vehicle and shot the video used in court. The defendants claiming from the beginning they were just protecting their community and acting in self-defense.
Your client was convicted of murder. Your reaction?
We're very disappointed with the verdict, obviously, but we have to respect that verdict. That's the American way.
Do you think your client was conducting a citizen's arrest?
I'm not going to answer that question.
President Biden saying Ahmaud Arbery's killing, witnessed by the world on video, is a devastating reminder of how far we have to go in the fight for racial justice in this country, with the family now celebrating the holidays without their son. So for the cheers, relief, and hugs felt by the hundreds of supporters.
Unspeakable joy. I'm happy. I'm excited. I'm overjoyed that God heard our prayers.
There's also a painful acknowledgement that the joy comes from so much heartache.
The verdict, to me, it broke me down because I thought it could, I have 4 sons. Could have been one of my boys.
A battle for racial equality still underway, but on this evening, supporters say the scales of justice looking a little more even.
All right, Sam Brock joins us now live from outside that courthouse. Sam, now that these three men have been found guilty, how long could they be in prison for?
There is a really strong likelihood, Tom, that all of them will be spending the rest of their lives behind bars, because the way that Georgia law is structured for both felony and malice murder, the minimum punishment is life imprisonment. It is up to the judge, Tom, if he wants to decide to introduce the possibility of parole. I should also add, we know that at least one defense attorney so far says they plan on filing an appeal. We could see more of those, too. Tom?
Sam Brock with what is likely to be a historic day there in Brunswick, Georgia. Sam, thank you. Today's verdict, an emotional moment for the Arbery family. Joining us now live is Thea Brooks, Ahmaud Arbery's aunt. Thea, can you take us into the courtroom when that verdict was read? What was that like for the family?
It was very emotional. It was just cheering. It was a moment of just being overjoyed. It was like a moment of relief that, we've been holding this in for now 20 months. And to finally get the verdict of guilty, it was just like a victory that we've been waiting to win.
Thea, at any point during this trial, because juries can come back with verdicts and they can always be so surprising, at any point did you think these three men would be found not guilty, that they would be acquitted?
No, sir. There was never any doubt in my mind. The video was proof. When Travis McMichael got on the stand, he helped us right to the door of victory, because as Ms. Denigowski asked him several questions, his answers was no. And his very last answer was, he just kept running.
And Thea, I want to ask you about this as we see that moment there in court when Travis McMichael took the stand and it was supposed to be his own defense. It was a turning point in this trial. What was it like to hear the moment by moment last minutes of Ahmaud Arbery?
It was very heartbreaking because Ahmaud was in Satilla Shores alone. He ran for 5 long minutes. There was no one there to save him, no one to help him. It seems like the whole neighborhood was armed as they testified. It seems like they were all on a hunt to get him. And it just really broke me down because, it's broad daylight on a Sunday afternoon when you're supposed to be inside, enjoying your family or enjoying just being with your family is what we were raised to do, or just hanging out, enjoying the weather, and to be gunned down and just left out there to die alone. It's very heartbreaking.
Thea, the entire country was watching this trial moment by moment every single day. A lot of cable news outlets were covering the trial every day live. So many people know about this case now. What can we learn from Ahmaud Arbery and what happened to him?
We can learn that it's not okay to do these things to people. Life should not be based off your race. Should be based off what's in your heart and who you are as a person. We can learn that there's so many things to learn from this, but the main thing is that we can no longer sit around and let these injustices happen and not speak out about them. It is time for everyone, when they see an injustice happening, to speak out about it, to be that witness that families seek, because there's so many cases that would have possibly been like Ahmaud if it had not been for the video. It would have been covered up. It would have just been another case left unturned, no answers, no closure. So a lot has been learned that if you do things in peace, you don't have to riot, tear up your neighborhoods, tear up your towns. If you just do things in peace, you pray, and just mobilize, strategize, and you can get the same results that we got here. It just took a lot of work, but you have to put work in for anything that you want to be successful.
Thea Brooks, Ahmaud Arbery's aunt. Thea, we thank you for your time. We thank you for joining Top Story tonight. For legal analysis and to help break down today's verdict and what happened in those last days of the trial, attorney Angela Senadella joins us again now on Top Story. So, Angela, talk to us about this verdict. What did you think? I know you weren't surprised by this, but talk to us about these felony murder charges.
Yes, so malice murder is very different from felony murder. Malice murder requires an intent to kill, which just means you had to have meant to kill someone. And that's why Travis McMichael was found guilty of that, because when he pulled the trigger, he likely meant to kill Ahmaud Arbery. Now, felony murder is almost totally different, but carries with it the same sentencing. Felony murder can be an accident, it can be unintentional. It just has to be directly correlated with the felony. That's why you saw 4 felony charges and 4 felony murder charges, and they matched up and they correlated exactly. That's also why you saw Gregory McMichael being found guilty of 4 and 4. Travis's father, and then Roddy Bryan, the one who took the cell phone footage, being found guilty of 3 felonies and 3 felony murders. So they were all connected.
Yeah, so let's talk about the moment Travis McMichael took the stand, because if we go back, that's really sort of what turned this case, right? I mean, you had the cell phone video there, but you really never know what's going to happen with the jury. You were explaining to me just before we started the show why defense attorneys had to put him on the stand.
Yes, so when your entire defense revolves around self-defense, the jury really wants to know what was going through your mind. Were you actually threatened? Were you really scared? Did you think that your life was in danger in that moment? But as you can see during this trial, it's also always a risk because you don't know what the defendant's actually going to say. So I agree, it was a turning point in the trial.
You know, we talked a lot about the prosecutors in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse and how they lost that case. The prosecutors here obviously got a conviction. They got what they wanted. What did they do right? Because they had all this pressure and the weight of the world, or at least the country, watching their every move.
These prosecutors were clearly more skilled, but at the same time, it all comes down to the facts and the evidence, and that's what the jury is required to go by. They're not supposed to go by whether or not the prosecutor was more convincing. But if you compare those cases, self-defense was totally different. In Rittenhouse's trial, he was being chased. In this trial, he was doing the chasing. So they're very different.
And as far as sentencing goes, we heard a little bit about this from Sam Brock. All these men could spend the rest of their life in prison.
Yes, and it seems likely. Only the judge can decide whether or not it's with or without parole.
All right, Angela Senadella for us again on Top Story. Angela, thank you for your analysis. We appreciate it. We want to turn now to the holiday travel rush this Thanksgiving. Millions of Americans taking to the roadways and the runways. Airlines bracing themselves for a record number of passengers during the pandemic. And those driving instead of flying may be facing higher prices at the pump. Tom Costello reports.
Wednesday night, and the nation's highways and airports are starting to wind down the heaviest Thanksgiving travel rush in 2 years. A far different scene from last year when 18 states required out-of-staters to test or self-quarantine.
We want to stay safe, and that's why we're absolutely staying within our inner circles and just going to our cabin.
Fast forward to 2021, and this Thanksgiving rush looks very different.
We're just blessed and fortunate to still be able to have all of our family members to get together.
But this is only the start of the yearly ritual, as airlines and airports predict booming passenger levels through Christmas and New Year's. Here in Washington, Reagan National unveiling new TSA checkpoints to move passengers more quickly through the process. To Detroit, Delta's third largest hub. To here in Tampa, where passenger levels have actually exceeded 2019 levels in recent days. That's the radio traffic here, air traffic control at O'Hare, as they are now very much in the thick of the holiday travel season, the busiest holiday season for air travel in 2 years since before the pandemic. Here in San Francisco, it's all about the potential for low clouds and ceilings. Here at Denver International Airport, the de-icing trucks are ready. One good Colorado snowstorm could slow air travel to a crawl. Nationwide, clear skies this week, but winter weather is the wild card through the December travel rush. If you have to cancel my flight because of weather, are you going to rebook me or do I rebook myself?
So certainly there's a disruption in your flight. We're going to take care of you and rebook you. But you do have the ability to go onto the United app and check out flight options yourself.
Meanwhile, 48 million Americans are on the roads this week, paying $3.40 for unleaded, $1.30 more than a year ago.
What's the alternative? You know, so everybody has to rework it. Prices go up. It's just kind of the way of the world.
Steep pump prices, but well below the all-time high of $4.11 a gallon back in 2008.
All right, Tom joins us now from Arlington, Virginia. Tom, we can see some of that holiday rush just behind you there. This is only the first part of the travel rush before Thanksgiving. What does part 2 look like after the holiday?
Oh, it's going to be heavy on Sunday, and that's the warning from state troopers around the country as well as the airlines. On the roads, all those people who drove to Grandma's house for Thanksgiving, they're going to be driving back, many of them waiting till Sunday. Between 1 and 7 p.m. will be the most traffic. And then the airlines are saying, yeah, they expect to see their heaviest day in 2 years on Sunday. And of course, 2 years ago, Sunday after Thanksgiving, they set an all-time record, 3 million. It won't be that many this time, but it's going to be an awful lot. So get to the airport early, download the app, check in online, and watch the status of your plane on your phone. That'll really help you speed things along, Tom.
Tom Costello covering us from today through Sunday. Tom, we thank you for that. All right, and as families begin to gather for Thanksgiving, several states, especially in the Midwest and the Northeast, are seeing a rise in COVID cases and hospitalizations. And tonight, the number of COVID deaths in 2021 surpassing 2020. Miguel Almaguer reports.
This Thanksgiving will be no holiday for the men and women on the front lines of the pandemic. The sobering reality inside ERs and the staggering number of patients still arriving at hospitals is leaving many with a less grateful and more grim outlook.
We're looking at 2 to 3 times the number of COVID patients that we had going back a month or two.
Dr. Justin Skorinsky is at the center of one of the nation's most dangerous COVID clusters, as cases spike nearly 70% in Michigan. If this state was a country, it would be home to one of the current worst outbreaks in the world.
We know that Thanksgiving probably won't do us any favors in terms of the COVID numbers. We're hoping this surge doesn't get so high that we can't handle the numbers here.
Threatening to set a pandemic record for hospitalizations, Michigan's governor is now asking the Department of Defense for emergency staffing as the unvaccinated spread the virus.
One thing I can say for sure is that if we don't get the majority of the people who are not vaccinated right now, things are going to be much worse.
States across the Midwest and Northeast are falling deeper into trouble every day.
No doubt we are seeing record levels of cases. We're seeing record levels of hospitalizations.
Still, it is safe to travel and get together for the holidays if precautions are taken. Among the most important, knowing what to do if you wake up feeling unwell before a gathering.
The bottom line is if you don't feel well, if you can't get tested, if you can't be sure that you don't have COVID, you just might want to sit this one out.
Tonight, pandemic precautions as so many Americans navigate Thanksgiving with family again.
All right, Miguel joins us now from L.A. And Miguel, this is really our first pandemic Thanksgiving where health officials have said it can be safe for families to come together.
Yeah, Tom, perhaps most notable, 6 out of 10 adults in the U.S. are now fully vaccinated, and booster shots are available to anyone 18 and over who's been fully inoculated for at least 6 months. So while cases are rising, for the vaccinated, there is protection. Tom?
Okay, Miguel, we thank you for that. We turn now to the growing death toll in Wisconsin. A little boy, 8-year-old Jackson Sparks, now the 6th person to die in the wake of that parade tragedy. His brother, along with at least 13 other children, still in the hospital, and shocking new details emerging about the moments leading up to the horrific attack. NBC's Megan Fitzgerald reports.
Tonight, a community shattered as more details emerge of the youngest victim of the horrific attack in Waukesha. 8-year-old Jackson Sparks was marching in the parade with his baseball team Sunday when the red SUV came plowing through. Jackson undergoing emergency brain surgery but passing away on Tuesday. The family calling it a tremendous loss. His 12-year-old brother still in the hospital, along with at least 10 other kids, many still fighting for their lives.
I was running around looking for my sister.
Kitsali Becerra Montez's 11-year-old sister, Yuretsi, who's now home recovering, was dancing in the parade. Her family was watching the moment she was struck by the car.
Just seeing her there, when we had found her, she was conscious, so she was looking up, and she just kept asking what's going on, what happened.
A little bit sad.
Allie Watcher was also there carrying the banner for the Dancing Grannies.
I heard tires squeal, and that's when I seen the car heading basically straight for the banner that I was carrying.
Virginia Sorensen was on the other end of the banner.
I was supposed to be on that side.
The car missed Allie, but Sorensen and 2 other members were struck and killed.
First-degree intentional homicide.
Details setting in as court records reveal more about Darrell Brooks's alleged actions. Documents say officers tried stopping the SUV, another calling the act intentional.
The details on this story just get worse and worse. Megan Fitzgerald joins us now from Waukesha, Wisconsin tonight. And Megan, we've talked so much about that community and how they've come together after this tragedy. You spoke with residents at a growing memorial there?
Yeah, absolutely, Tom. You know, as you know, this community is just devastated, and a lot of people say they feel helpless. So what we've seen here throughout the day is a steady stream of people coming to this memorial. They tell us that they are here to lay flowers and to say prayers, to leave balloons, light candles as they're doing, and to pray. But most importantly, they're here to lean on each other, to cry on each other's shoulders. They tell us that's just one step to getting them closer to healing, Tom.
All right, Megan Fitzgerald for us. Megan, we thank you for that. We're going to switch gears now. We are looking ahead to Black Friday. Many families will spend part of tomorrow planning out their holiday shopping strategies. But when is the best time to get the best deals? Jolene Kent breaks it down for Top Story.
The flood of deals may be everywhere already, but another avalanche is on the way this Thanksgiving weekend.
I've already started it. I love getting ready for the holidays.
As retailers try to capture your spending and make up for a tough 2020.
Everything we're buying this year is 75% in person, 25% online.
The rush for discounts comes as a clogged supply chain continues to trigger major delays on scores of gifts, motivating some shoppers to get going early. On average, consumers plan to spend $998 on gifts and beyond this season, down slightly from before the pandemic in 2019.
Despite the rising cost of living, shoppers like here in Los Angeles are expected to show up in droves. And it's the same story here at the Mall of America in Minnesota. In fact, the National Retail Federation estimates that 66% of shoppers nationwide will spend this holiday weekend. To here in Maryland, where shoppers are hunting for clothes, toys, and gift cards.
With so much demand, shoppers should expect to see weaker than usual discounts this weekend.
We're seeing discounts in the range of 5 to 25% this season, and that's different from previous seasons when they've gone down as much as 10 to 30%.
Those shallower discounts driven by supply chain issues and retailers having to pay more to get your products on their shelves.
The retailers are really struggling to keep popular products in stock, ship them out on time, and consumers are going to really start feeling that, especially if they're shopping at the last minute this year.
So what should you buy and when? Experts say the biggest sales on toys will happen tomorrow on Thanksgiving Day. The deepest discounts on big ticket items like TVs, as well as clothes, shoes, and beauty are expected on Black Friday. And look for the best price cuts on electronics and travel come Cyber Monday.
All right, toys tomorrow and TVs on Black Friday. Jolene Kent joins us now from a shopping mall in suburban Chicago. So with some of the best deals happening tomorrow and not really on Friday, shoppers should know that not all stores will be open on Thanksgiving. What's changed?
Yeah, that's right. One of the big trends after the pandemic, amid the ongoing pandemic, is that many stores will be closed. Major retailers like Best Buy, Macy's, Home Depot, and Target. In fact, the Target CEO saying they're not just closed tomorrow on Thanksgiving Day, but all Thanksgiving days going forward for good, Tom.
We thank Jolene for that. Turning overseas now to Turkey, the country's currency crashed into a historic low, falling more than 15% in a single day. The lira is now the world's worst performing currency, with many pointing the blame at Turkey's president. NBC News senior international correspondent Keir Simmons joins us now from Istanbul tonight. So, Keir, the lira has been in free fall for quite some time. What's driving this latest drop?
Well, President Erdogan, Tom, is driving this drop because he has put pressure on the central bank here to reduce interest rates, which admittedly are in double digits. Imagine that, interest rates in double digits. But people here are trapped in a pincer movement, not just of interest rates, of inflation, because lowering interest rates has meant that money has been leaving this country. That has had an effect on the value of the Turkish lira, and that has meant that inflation is soaring at 20%. People talking about their prices just going up and up. It is so painful, Tom, and a lesson really to everyone at the damage that can be done by inflation.
20% inflation, and the Turkish people obviously bearing the brunt of this crisis as prices continue to skyrocket. So how are they reacting to all this news? And also, what's the big picture here for the rest of Europe and really the global economy?
Well, Tom, people are incredibly upset. There are increasing demonstrations. There is an election in 2024, but that might come earlier, and President Erdogan is in real trouble. And your second question is a really great one because, of course, Turkey is a member of NATO. It is on the border of Europe. It has many, many refugees here, for example, from Syria. We've seen before what happens if they begin to pour into Europe. That can cause a real crisis. This is a strategic location. The US has bases here. So a crisis in Turkey, and that is what we're really talking about now, can have worldwide implications. And remember too, Tom, that President Erdogan is seen as one of the autocrats. President Putin, President Xi. If his position is shaking, how will he respond? All of those others, President Putin, President Xi, what they really fear is an economic crisis that has the people turn against them. How it plays out here in Turkey will be watched around the world, Tom.
From Istanbul tonight, Keir, we thank you. Still ahead, the migrant tragedy. Dozens killed after a boat capsized on its way to the UK. The calls for change tonight from UK's Prime Minister. Plus, the man exonerated for the decades-old rape of an award-winning author. What he told our Isa Gutierrez about his quest to clear his name. And parade countdown, the last-minute preps today as the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade prepares to return to its normal route for the first time in 2 years. Stay with us. Top story, just getting started. Back now with an incredible story of redemption. Anthony Broadwater, convicted of rape in 1981 of acclaimed author Alice Sebold. She told the story in her 1999 memoir, Lucky, and it helped launch her best-selling career. But this week, Broadwater exonerated after almost 4 decades. NBC News correspondent Isa Gutierrez spoke with him and has his story.
This court grants defendant's motion.
Tonight, tears of relief, nearly 40 years in the making.
I'm still crying with joy and relief right now today. I'm really overwhelmed. Words can't describe it.
Anthony Broadwater exonerated by a New York State Supreme Court judge this week at 61 years old, after spending most of his life paying for a crime he didn't commit.
With joy and relief, I went up to the gravesite to see my dad to tell him. I wish to God he was here.
Broadwater was 20 when he was charged with the rape of Alice Sebold, who went on to write bestseller The Lovely Bones. The alleged crime happened in 1981 at a park in Syracuse, New York. Sebold described the attack in detail almost 20 years later in Lucky, a book that launched her career as an author. Her next hit, The Lovely Bones, was later adapted into an award-winning film. But all this was after Broadwater was convicted for first-degree rape and 5 related charges. He spent 16 years in prison. Through the years, he maintained his innocence. After serving his sentence, he quickly realized his life would never be the same.
The moment I stepped out, it was like impossible to get a job. These 10 fingers I can count on my hand of the people that accept me in their household. I can't get past 10.
He never stopped trying through appeals, motions, and even 2 polygraph tests to prove his innocence. But nothing worked. Until a film producer working on a screen adaptation of Sebold's book Lucky hired a private investigator to look into the evidence presented against Broadwater in court. They became convinced Broadwater was telling the truth.
Together, as we looked through the trial transcript, we realized, wow, this was a bogus conviction.
Earlier this month, Broadwater's new lawyers filed a motion to vacate his conviction based on now discredited scientific evidence and Sebold's identification of Broadwater as the perpetrator.
No one questions that Ms. Sebold was sexually assaulted. She absolutely was. But she saw Mr. Broadwater on the street about 5 months later, had a feeling this was the person who had raped her, and reported it to police.
She is asked to look at the individuals at some point in the lineup, and she picks out number 5. Anthony Broadwater was number 4.
Attorneys say they learned the next part of the story from Sebold's book, which they presented to the court as new evidence.
After that, the prosecutor walks in the room and begins to tell her, well, you picked the wrong guy, but essentially, don't worry, your hunch is correct. it actually is number 4.
Despite not picking him out of the lineup, at the trial, Sebold claimed Broadwater was the perpetrator. In a statement on Broadwater, the Onondaga County District Attorney who supported the exoneration said in part, "It is never too late to do the right thing." A spokesperson for Scribner, the publisher of Lucky, telling NBC News neither Alice Sebold nor Scribner has any comment. Scribner has no plans to update the text of Lucky at this time.
Now that you've been exonerated, what does the rest of your life look like?
I hope that I can give some inspiration to somebody and say, hey, if you're not guilty of something, do not give in. I've been yelling and screaming and exhausting all my finances to prove my innocence. It finally came.
Now, Broadwater says he can finally rest. Isa Gutierrez, NBC News.
We thank Isa for that story. When we come back, the Interpol battle. China pushing for a place on the International Police Organization, but it's being met with fierce opposition from at least 20 other countries. The decision now going up for a vote tomorrow. And oh dear, the buck breaking into a classroom overnight, and it was still there when students arrived. What happened next? Stay with us. All right, back now with Top Stories newsfeed, and we begin with the arrest in a shooting outside of a Colorado high school. Police say a 15-year-old is now facing attempted first-degree murder charges. He's accused of driving by an Aurora park and opening fire. 6 people ranging in age from 14 to 18 were injured. Police say they are still looking for at least 2 other suspects. It was one of 2 shootings near an Aurora high school last week. All right, U.S. jobless claims have reached their lowest level in more than 50 years. Unemployment claims dipped just under 200,000, the lowest since November of 1969. Seasonal work around the Thanksgiving holiday likely contributed. Benefits claims hit a peak of $6 million in April 2020. All right, the NFL has reached a $790 million settlement with the city of St. Louis over the Rams relocation. The settlement ends a 4.5-year battle between the city and Rams owner Stan Kroenke. The lawsuit was originally seeking $1 billion, with officials claiming the move cost the St. Louis area millions of dollars in lost revenue. And a surprise for a student at one Tennessee elementary school. I should say several students. Video shows a large deer inside the classroom in Springfield. Officials say it crashed through an emergency exit and became trapped inside overnight. The buck did cause some damage, but it was not injured. The Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency was able to escort the animal back into the wild. And the final preps are underway for the 95th annual Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. 15 giant character balloons and 36 inflatables blown up today. There are several new balloons this year, including a Baby Yoda and a Pikachu. The parade returning to its normal route through New York City, with the NYP now setting up, get this, 360,000 pounds of concrete barriers. You can watch all the festivities beginning tomorrow at 9 a.m. right here, or I should say on our mothership, NBC the network. Now to a major vote set to happen on the global stage. Members of Interpol, the international policing organization, meeting in Istanbul this week. Several key leadership positions up for grabs, and China is fighting for a seat on the executive board, but human rights groups warning that could lead to an abuse of power. NBC's senior international correspondent Keir Simmons again tonight from Turkey.
Tonight, a battle over the future of the international policing organization, Interpol, the world's second largest institution after the UN, defending its reputation.
We are not a political organization.
But China pushing for a place on the 13-person executive committee. The vote in Istanbul tomorrow. Beijing's candidate Hu Bin-chen, who works for a government agency, accused in a recent report of forcing political dissidents to return home. China denies those claims. 50 politicians from 20 countries raising the alarm, writing in a letter his election would be giving a green light to the Chinese government to continue their misuse of Interpol and would place the tens of thousands of dissidents living abroad at even graver risk.
They can use this system, in fact, to fight against people who promote human rights in China.
China's last official Interpol role ended in scandal. Former President Meng Hongwei disappeared in 2018 during a business trip to China and is serving a 13-year jail sentence there. This month, his wife calling China's government a monster. And critics say Beijing uses secretive Interpol red notices, arrest warrants, to pursue opponents around the world, like members of China's Uyghur minority. Uyghur leader Dr. Isa Dulkan says he was subjected to a red notice for 2 decades. But it's against Interpol's own rules to issue red notices against political figures.
It is, but China, some country, particularly China, misuse it. This is the concern.
China's foreign ministry telling NBC News, in part, China's proposal of suitable candidates for the executive committee of Interpol is a specific measure to actively support the organization's goals of combating terrorism, transnational crime, and making the world safer.
A lot happening in Turkey this week. Keir Simmons is back with us again from Istanbul ahead of that key vote tomorrow. And Keir, Interpol will also vote to elect a new president?
That's right. A Major General from the United Arab Emirates has been touring the world for votes. He is a favourite, and of course he is very controversial because there are human rights questions surrounding the United Arab Emirates. Many people saying that this vote tomorrow, Tom, is about democracy and about defending the rule of law. Tom?
Keir Simmons pulling double duty for us tonight. Keir, we thank you for that. Now to Top Stories Global Watch and a tragic story off the coast of France where more than 30 migrants have drowned. Police say a packed boat capsized in the English Channel on its way to the UK. At least 30 people killed in one of the worst migrant disasters in that waterway. Today, the British Prime Minister called on other countries to help prevent smugglers from facilitating those crossings. Sweden elected its first female prime minister, but then she resigned just a few hours later. Magdalena Andersson was appointed today, but stepped down shortly after because her coalition partner quit and her budget failed to pass. Instead, the parliament voted for a budget drawn up by the opposition, which includes the anti-immigration far right. And New Zealand will begin welcoming tourists again after nearly 2 years. The country announcing it will reopen its borders in phases from January to April. Most travelers will need to be fully vaccinated and they will need to quarantine for a week and will need negative tests on departure and arrivals. All right, staying overseas now, we head to Ethiopia, where a civil war is threatening the capital. Rebel Tigrayan forces are drawing closer, and barely trained civilians are headed to the front lines. Sky News' John Sparks is there.
As the war draws closer to the Ethiopian capital, the defense of Addis Ababa is waged in unconventional ways. At youth and community centers across the city. Religious leaders tell residents they're ready to go and fight, while aging veterans seem confident of victory over the leaders of the region of Tigray. And there are sounds of defiance in a city where many feel isolated. Here, a former general delivers a threat with a reference to a colonial foe. Then, brand new recruits are brought to the front of the hall. 20 men and women who will join government forces to fight the rebel TPLF. And in the district of Arada, they are embraced as saviors.
You are going to the front with very little training.
That's exactly what Ethiopia's Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, wants to hear. He's now informed the nation via social media that he's going to the front, where he will personally lead the army, leaving the business of government to others. And he's asked Ethiopians to join him in what he calls the battle to save the nation.
Abiy's announcement has come as a surprise, a shock really to the people of Addis Ababa, because many people here thought the government was winning the war. But the reality is different. The rebels are just 140 miles away, and the Prime Minister has made what sounds like a final call to arms.
We are
Some of Abiy's soldiers are now prisoners of war, and the Tigrayans have been parading them before the cameras. There are reports that some 16,000 may be held by the TPLF. These pictures, part of a propaganda war, which is fought with equal ferocity. For the people of Addis Ababa, history seems to be repeating itself, with another rebel army threatening to invade. And many here have sought sanctuary in their faith.
God will save us. Well, God will be with us if we go to church.
God will save you.
We are 100% sure God will save. Still, He's protecting us.
Foreign countries like France and Canada and neighboring Sudan have told their citizens to leave immediately. But the people of this city must stay and wait.
Sky News' John Sparks for us tonight. We thank John. All right, coming up, that sky-high holiday bill. Many Americans likely facing sticker shock this week as they shop for Thanksgiving. Just how much the average Turkey Day meal will cost this year. We'll be right back. Back now with Money Talks, what consumers and investors need to know from the business world and beyond. Tonight, Thanksgiving troubles and the toll that inflation is taking on everything from turkeys to pumpkin pies. Here's NBC's Alice Sebold.
In western Pennsylvania, turkeys are plentiful at Koch's Turkey Farm. But this Thanksgiving, they will cost a little more.
Our retail price is about $2.99 a pound. For our all-natural antibiotic-free turkey line, which is also certified humane.
And how does that compare to last year and pre-pandemic?
It's about a 15% price increase last year and pre-pandemic. We had no price changes from pre-pandemic to 2020. 2021, as those supply chain issues bubbled through our system, it was about a 12 to 15% price increase.
The good news? There's no turkey shortage.
There certainly will be turkeys for Thanksgiving. I think it just may be a little bit of a delayed delivery to our retail partners.
The bad news? This year, everything on your Thanksgiving plate is a little more expensive because of inflation. According to the American Farm Bureau Federation, the average Thanksgiving meal for 10 people will cost $5 a person. That's the priciest it's been in the survey's 36 years, and a 14% increase compared to last year. A dozen dinner rolls will cost you $3.05. That's up 15%. A 12-ounce bag of fresh cranberries, that'll cost you $2.98, an 11% increase. 2 frozen pie crust will cost you $2.91, a 20% increase. And turkeys, that centerpiece will cost almost 24% more than they did last year. Industry experts say supply chain issues, from labor shortages to the cost of turkey feed, are all behind the uptick.
We do know that we are seeing, higher costs for transportation next year. We're seeing higher costs for energy. Of course, labor, as we've talked about. Our feed inputs to raise the turkeys, those are more expensive than they've been. It's going to be some inflationary impact that is going to stick around.
If you're waiting until the last minute to buy a Thanksgiving turkey, you probably will be able to find one at the store, but it'll probably cost you a little bit more than usual, and the turkey itself might be a little bit bigger. Because of labor shortages, turkeys like these guys have spent more time on the farm than they would in normal years, and they had more time to grow. Most families, if they're buying a turkey, they can expect to pay about $1.50 per pound. Tom?
Bigger turkeys this year. All right, Ellison, that was my takeaway. We thank you for that story.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.